Welcome to Strong Women and Beautiful Men, and I am Celestine Raven. And this is a program, it's quite new now, in which I would like to talk with beautiful and interesting people about their passions and their inspirations and their motivations and their goals in life. And this time I talk to a very special, beautiful, Chinese and strong, of course, Chinese woman, and she's living in the Netherlands. She used to be a television host for the Chinese national television, and she finished her study, came here and continued her study here, and decided to stay here, and also started to make documentaries here in the Netherlands. And even got rewarded for this documentary. But we talk about this later, so I first want to introduce to you, here is Jialu Zhang.
Thank you. Welcome. My pleasure.
Yes, I'm happy you're there. You are here also in a sort of idea of a global village.
Definitely.
Can you relate to this? Do you have an idea about this global village? Because you come from China and you're now in Europe. Mm-hmm. So do you feel like a sort of global village?
Every day I feel like I encounter this kind of a concept because I come from a more conservative cultural background. I have close relationship with my family who are relatively more conservative compared to the European standard. But I live in Europe and I'm even more open-minded than the average Europeans. So you can see like the conflicts or the challenges that I have in my daily lives. And I've traveled quite a lot of places in the past and studied in different countries, lived in different countries, worked in with projects in over 40 different countries. So I really see myself a part of the global citizen. I hope I can call myself a global citizen.
Yeah, or global, I call it global villager. Mm-hmm. Like we make a little village, sort of. But what for you is the difference between being born in China and coming to here? You talk about the conservative part, and here you being very modern, even modern, more modern than the European people. So can you give me an example for this?
For example, I come from a family that my mom and dad, they were raised up in the post-communist time. At that time, China was not so commercialized. And what they have believed in, for example, that's very common in the Netherlands, gay rights and the gay marriage and the no discrimination because of the skin color. For them, it's relatively new because how the media has portrayed the skin-colored people in China in the past was not so positive. So, but they are not the ones that to blame, but sometimes the media is the one to blame. So when my mom saw me sending photos of working in Africa with black people, eating with them, she was first shocked. She's like, oh my God, you eat and you sit and you work with black people. I was like, Mom, but you have to understand, like people are the same, this and that. And at the beginning, she was conservative. She was concerned. She was afraid, like she saw only wars and poverty from media in Africa. But later and later, while she started to enter my world and see me having all different kinds of friends from different cultural backgrounds and from different countries, and she also enjoyed it. And I think from the times that I first worked in the African until the first time she danced with my African friends, it only took 2 years. And she started sending voice messages to my African friends like, welcome, please come to China to visit me. And so it's quite nice to see the changes that I have seen the world. I have better opportunities than my mom. I speak English, I travel, and then I can slowly take the global villager perspective back to China to a more conservative, the elder generations, and give them a chance of also enjoying the global villager life.
But that's especially your mom. Your mom is privileged to have a daughter like you.
Yeah.
And how is it? China is in a crisis, a difficult period now. How does it affect also the mentality towards a global village? Well, we go a little bit politic now, but you have an opinion about this. China has changed.
Mm-hmm. China has changed, but it's difficult to say whether it's changing in a bad or good direction. And people are kind of standing in between the crossroad of looking left and right and which way that I should go, because no countries in the past like China, with such a rich history and also the burden from the history, and with such a big population and with such a big economy, that no country give China or any other people this experience of deciding what's the best. So we say like every step is like a step that you try to move forward and see what's happening the next. So it's hard to tell where we're going, but it's an interesting time for people who live in China and also for people like Chinese living outside China to see. Yeah.
Well, it's interesting also because you are having made this documentary, Mao's Ice Cream. I would like to talk about that a little bit later. First, I would like to introduce you more because before you came to the Netherlands, to Europe, you had your life as a host. We would like to see a bit of this and look back at your life then.
观众朋友们，大家好，欢迎您收看由电影频道《世界电影之旅》为您带来的第85届奥斯卡红毯特别报道。我是嘉璐，
我是春蝉。
So what are you saying there? Which one are you?
The one on the right with the purple dress was me. And I was saying, hello everybody, this is China Movie Channel, and we are happy to present here on the 85th edition of Oscar Awards for the Red Carpet Show. And this is the first year that the Coda Theater is going to change name into the Dolby Theater. So it's a historical moment, etc., etc.
Hello, Chinese audience. How are you? Well, I've been the front runner a few times and lost. So, what for us is fun is that it's just a really fun night. And it's nice to keep them. If these movies make money, we get to make more movies like that. That's fun. That's the fun part.
今年的奥斯卡提名在演员项目的争
You look so beautiful there.
Thank you.
So what are you saying here?
I was just presenting the nominations of that year. There are so many categories and so many actresses that I have to remember the name. I remember preparation for the red carpet show. Normally it's 400 people that is going to step onto the red carpet. And so months before the show actually start, and we started already preparing. Remember the names, the face, and what's the nomination, what's the potential that they're gonna win.
So how old were you there?
I was only 24, 25 years old when I started doing Oscar shows.
Oh, so how long is it ago?
12 years ago.
Okay.
Yeah.
And after how many time did you decide to, because you were still studying then? With this, you were still studying also at the university? Or how does it go in the time?
In the timeline. I first studied about the TV editing and documentary for my bachelor. And after my graduation, I started working for the China Movie Channel for 5 years. And I think that was the first time. The footage showed my first time in Oscar. I did 3 years in total. And right after the last Oscar show, on the way back, on the plane, I received the offer from the Amsterdam University. And then I decided, okay, I'm going to quit my job. I'm moving to Europe as a student.
Oh,
yeah.
wow.
It was quite a bold move, yeah.
So if you see yourself coming here and now, so what do you think of the European society, and how do you reflect on this?
My first time in Europe was when I was 18, 19 years old. And that was in Paris. It gave me the strongest cultural shock ever. I find even the trash can the most beautiful in Paris. And that was also the first time I stepped outside China. And recently I've been back in Paris again. Nothing ever changes. Like also I studied in Denmark for a year, and I went back to Denmark again after 10 years. The airplane, it's still the same. The grocery store is still the same. It's quite nice, yeah, the feeling, because that's something nostalgic for me to feel. But back in China, like my parents' place, like downstairs, it changes every year. The road is different. I couldn't find the way to go somewhere. I wanted to find my favorite restaurant. It was no longer there. Everything changes really rapidly in China.
Is there a reason for that?
The city is expanding. One of the reasons.
And you're talking about Beijing then? Or
no, every city in
Every
China
city.
is expanding. The economy was booming in the past decades. And the last 3-4 years, due to COVID, some of the smaller sized companies went bankrupt. And so that was one of the reasons, especially in the service industry. Yeah. So
Personally, for you, how did you change in this period that you're living now here?
mhm.
What did you pick up from European or Dutch culture that was good or bad?
Dutch culture, I wouldn't say there was a moment that I changed dramatically, but I would say the changes happens daily, slowly. And then sometimes I look back and think, wow, I've changed so much. So that was the feeling. I think I'm more tolerant. In the past, I was open-minded, but I hope everybody would be as open-minded as I am. So I really didn't get the core of being open-minded. And now I'm more tolerant as of if somebody has different opinion, I can still take it. I can still respect other people's opinion. I think that's a secondary level of being tolerant. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And is it typically something European or is it typically something?
I think it's like my Dutch friends and the European friends. That's the attitudes that they have, given me on a daily basis. Yeah.
Okay, or maybe Western. Yeah.
Western.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I would like to talk about your first inspiration. I asked you before the show your 2 inspirations, and one of them is your mom. And you connected it with also Mao's ice cream. But first, why your mom?
Why my mom? I think,
Yeah.
why not my mom? She is the person that the first moment I was born, and then I was in contact with. And unlike typical Chinese, more than mother-daughter relationship, not so good, I have very good relationship with my mom. I was blessed. She's like a friend to me. I don't have nothing that hidden from her, no secrets. And I can tell her my darkest sort and sometimes my ambitious, bad feelings. And we talk on the phones like all the time, sometimes for 1 hour, 2 hours. And so she's also representing a generation of strong Chinese women. Yeah, she came from a very poor background and fight all the way up. She's not like, a celebrity or somebody, but she made the best use of her talent and her time. And she raised me up and also take care of 4 of my sick grandparents until 4 of them passed away. And then she took care of my dad when my dad was sick and until my dad passed away. So when I look back at her life, she was a typical caretaker, but she also has a very strong self. She was not lost in the label of being a mom, a wife, a daughter. She still holds a very strong opinion just as herself. So I think that's something that I would like to learn, how to make a balance of different roles in your lives.
So how is this for you then, the different roles?
For me now, I think I struggle a little bit because I have a young child and I'm a single mom and also an expat living not in my home country. And sometimes I find it quite difficult to balance the role of being a mom or the role of being myself. Like my son needs education. I also wanted to spend time learning Dutch. So sometimes I struggle whether to finish his homework or my homework first. So yeah. It's challenging, but it's also fun because through my son's life living and growing up in the Netherlands, I feel like I'm growing up in the Netherlands again. It's completely different. Yeah, the education system is different. And through my son's eyes, I see another chance of myself growing up. Yeah, which is quite nice.
Yeah, which is quite nice. So who do you see?
Who do I see? I sometimes ask myself, like, oh, if I were him, like I had this chance of walking for 4 days when I was 4 or 5 years old, every day 7 kilometers, would I make it or not? Like I saw this very strong sports spirit and culture in the Netherlands. Everybody was involved, and not only the professional athletes. Recently we have the Olympics, right? And so it was quite astonishing to see such a small country as Netherlands win the 6th place. And my son was like, yeah, but we, China, so he's half Dutch, half Chinese. We, China, we rank almost first, blah, blah, blah. I said, yeah, but we have 1.4 billion people. And we send a professional athletes. But here in the Netherlands, I feel like almost everybody has a level of being a professional athlete. Yeah.
Oh, that's beautiful. So that's also a sort of inspiration.
Yeah, of having a bit of when we Chinese growing up, we didn't have such a strong feeling about hobby, because student is my identity when I was a teenager, and I shouldn't do anything else besides study. And of course, you can say swimming was my hobby. I was good at swimming, but there was always a purpose when you do something. For swimming, I wanted to swim. I win the awards, and then I get extra points when I wanted to go to college. So it was never for fun, never for enthusiastic. But here in the Netherlands, if you go swim 3 times training per week, you go because you like it, you enjoy it. So that's
Do you think that's the reason also behind, well, this success of the Olympics in the Netherlands, from the Netherlands? The thing that you like it?
Because you like it and then you wanted to be good at it. That's how you devoted your time onto doing it. And so when I turned 30, I realized I actually don't have a hobby that I just purely enjoy. I always had a purpose. I like puzzling because I think it's fulfilling. I can make paintings out of it afterwards, but not just the process. So I started looking for something that without a purpose, but just for the process. Yeah.
Oh, that's beautiful. Beautiful insight to see this. If we come back to your mom, you made this documentary, and it even won a prize in Poland, I think, in Krakow.
In Poland and also in France.
And also in France.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, what role does your mom take in this documentary?
I normally don't tell people that the main character is my mom. And then I let them watch the documentary, and then later I tell them, wow, they say that. So the story that we portrayed in this documentary was a story that I heard from my mom, like, since I was little. And she told me when she was 18, she found, together with another 4 friends, they found 2 yuan, which was nothing, like 30 cents euro on the street, but at the time it was a big fortune. So they decided to take a photo. And every 10 years, they took a photo to memorize the time. But I didn't know at the time 1976 was important, 86 was important, 96 was important. Until the 2016, they were about to take a new photo. And then I shared this story with Spring Roll Media, with other 2 colleagues that I was working with. And they were fascinated about this idea, like how 5 women can keep the friendship, they're long-lasting for all those years, while they have completely different life. And so we decided to make this film about it, and they were quite supportive. At the beginning, we need to convince them a little bit to be comfortable in front of the camera.
And how is are they vulnerable? Like if they come into this documentary, they show themselves, they show their ideas. Is this like something the government will accept? Are they free to talk and say whatever they want?
They are free to talk, but
because there is a little fragment, and I understand it's your father and your mom
yes,
talking. Let's go and watch this.
Yeah.
By the way, under it there is a link, and then you can see the whole documentary.
改革是为了公平和人民性，这个标题还是好听就是了，嘎。
获得巨大经济成就的同时，积累了大量公平就是不公平，所以叫公平。
哦，现在真的不公平了。
就是不对付。
我说的，你这点儿又说反了，不幸福。你比较。
一系列问题。这个当时对付于精神富的活动上。
精神上哪个来陪伴你，哪个来那个你了嘛，辛苦你了嘛。
准你得这样那样。
哪儿不准你这样那样嘛？
你要比如说看这个还不准。
哪个不准你看这个嘛？
到这个网上都不是。
哪不准？
我在这个时代，中国人才能共同享有人生出彩的机会，共同享有梦想成真的机会，共同享有
你又极端了。
一起成长进步的机会。对，唯有改革，不断改变前行，才能更好地诠释人民幸福和公平正义，才能
那个对嘛，嘎，成都
逐步实现共同富裕，以习近平同志为核心的党中央。
Well, it's my idea. I don't know much, about China. I'm a Western person, and I only know what is told to me or what I read from the Western journalists. And so my idea is that it's very strict, and the government is very strict in having an own opinion. It's a bit like your father said. But you now make this documentary, and you point this out. Mm-hmm. So how is this tricky? Is this?
I also find this part interesting because during this part of filming, I was not there, and my parents wouldn't feel comfortable if I'm operating the camera and filming about them. So I let two of my other colleagues doing it. I was upstairs, and I was eardropping the conversation I had. I said, wow, I'm so gonna edit this part into it because it's typical that happens in the Chinese family that people do talk about politics, but not deeply involved. They wanted to share their opinion like my dad wants to say, but he's keeping it quite modest. It was pinpointing some facts, but not going too deep. And then my mom represents the other angle, which is quite a typical woman in China. And no, what the government has said is the truth, and men tend to be a bit more critical than women in China. The women tend not to talk that much about politics because they also don't feel like they are involved. Yeah. Once you are not involved, you don't talk about it. You don't pay extra attention about it. Yeah.
But is this by the government? Are you free to do whatever you want? Can you just use this and show this? Can they see this in China, for example, your documentary?
This documentary can also be shown in China because it doesn't contain what the government considered as censored or political. It's representing people having different opinions. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And also,
so it's allowed that you're not feeling free, and that you're not happy in being free, and that there is no equality.
You are allowed to have opinions. You can talk about it, but to a certain extent, because this is my mom talking with my dad, and this film is not being broadcast on a national level, and then the influences is small. So yes, you can do that.
Okay. Okay. Are you proud of them if you see that?
Yeah, I find it quite interesting. It's a lot of documentary makers started their early works filming about their family members. And I didn't operate the camera, but I led two colleagues who doesn't understand Chinese, not a single word of Chinese. They did the filming, and then we did the editing together. And so for me, it's a nice experience because I could see that people that I'm familiar with, they are relaxed in front of the camera. And then they are just as me sitting next to them. They're doing exactly the same thing, which gives people a nice feeling of entering a family life. Yeah.
What do you think of your mom having this opinion and your father having that opinion? Do you have your opinion of your own between them, or?
My opinion also changes. It's not always the same. I think I was not so pro-China when I was in China. And then I actually studied political science and political communication, so very political oriented, two master subjects. And after studying it, I become more chilled. And then I started to understand why China doesn't have the Western recognized democracy, and everything has a reason behind it. I'm not trying to legitimize the current situation in China, but I have found the reasons that I accept why it's not happening.
Can you tell
Yeah.
me the reason?
The reason is I find the representative democracy in China wouldn't work because we are not the majority of the people are not civilized enough. So we can only allow the representative democracy, which means that the majorities cannot vote, but you can vote to elect other people to vote for you. And so it takes time for the real democracy to happen in China, because the majority has to be educated, has to be informed, has to be part of the democratic process.
Is this a process? Will it go that way? Is this also a plan of the government, or
Now I see a
is
bit
this
of
a
a
dream
reverse.
of you?
Yeah, it's a dream of me, definitely.
Yeah.
Now I see the reality being a little bit of a reverse. Yeah. But there are progress, underground progress. Yeah. But at least people should be able to talk about it and then reflect. Yeah, that's important.
You have another inspiration.
Mhm.
And I'm going to take my paper again because it's a very difficult name.
Yeah.
I didn't know of her. She's a Russian Nobel Prize winner.
Svetlana Alexeyevich.
Svetlana
Yeah.
Alexeyevich.
I also don't speak Russian, but I read quite a lot of her work.
Yeah, and you loved also her book,
Yeah.
Unwomanly Face of the War.
Yeah.
Wow, that's a very beautiful title. Can you explain me why you love this book? Why you chose this?
Yeah, because even when we were talking about this conversation between my mom and dad, that was captured in one of her books called The Second Hand Time.
Really?
Talking about in Russia, they have a word called the kitchen talks. And the kitchen talks.
Kitchen talk.
Kitchen
on the
talks.
kitchen table.
It means that while you are cooking, there is a lot of noises. You talk about politics in the kitchen with your family because the lines of the telephones are being watched by the government. So when the Russian people say, let's have a little bit of a kitchen talks, it means that we're going to go to the kitchen, make some noises while we talk about politics. So if you are doing it in the living room, the telephone is being monitored by the government. So the government and spies can overhear you. That's why you move to the kitchen, because kitchen is noisy. You're cutting, you are doing dishes. That's where you do the talks related with politics. Because you are afraid the Soviet Union government would hear your conversation. So that's the thing that I find it quite common, because in China as well, you're also afraid of people eardropping your conversation, because during Cultural Revolution, your neighbor might turn your back in because they overhear your talking.
We have a little footage in which she is reading a little bit from the second-hand
time, yeah.
Second-hand time, and also a little explanation about who she is. We can watch that.
Yep.
Only a Soviet can understand another Soviet person. I wouldn't have talked to anyone else.
Svetlana Alexeyevich is a collector of other people's stories, a chronicler of the life and death of the Soviet Union. Alexeyevich is from Belarus, one of the 15 states that emerged out of the ashes of the USSR. But she's very much a Soviet writer. Her lifelong obsession has been to probe the psychological effects of the collapse of the Soviet Empire on its people.
So why do you like her?
Like she said, only Soviet Union people can understand Soviet Union people, but I'd like to expand that perspective into only people who lived in the post-communist time could understand people who had that experience. And I was still the generation that grew up with a lot of Russian Soviet Union literature. So through her book, I could see my childhood life and my parents, grandparents understand a bit more about that generation even. And one of her book, she's very good oral historian. My dad was a historian, so I find the combination, interests me as well. And she does a lot of interviews, and she doesn't really correct or doing anything to modifying it. She just put it into words and collect them and put it into a publication. And the Unwomanly Face of War was about a woman's female memory of the Second World War in Russia. Like normally we see it from literature, also from film, documentaries, but all through a man's perspective. And nobody ever asked, how does women perceive the war? Because even the soldiers, the uniforms was made just for men. There was no underwears or, like lingeries made for female soldier. They had to wear oversized socks, oversized shoes, but going to fight the same war that men fight. And at the beginning, these female soldiers even worry about, where am I gonna find my lipsticks? They were still thinking of putting daisy flowers on their face. But slowly, the war kind of broke all their bubbles. They were only in their 15s, 16s. And I see that through this perspective of a female view towards the war, if everybody would read this book, we wouldn't have a war anymore. So that's why I recommend it to my friends and say, if you read it, let your child read it. We have no war in the future. Yeah.
I don't understand you. Why?
Because you see how women, normally you only see the male version, the perspective. War is about power. War is about winning. War is about brotherhood, soldiers fighting like next to each other. But through the female perspective of the war, you really see how the war has damaged the normal life.
Does the word awareness, what does it sound to you? Where does it refer to awareness? Like, are you being more aware, or is awareness something important in your life or in the culture?
Awareness. I think awareness has something to do with everybody's identity. And I'm more aware of who I am than before. Yeah. And also identity is something that stays with you but changes all the time. And being aware of that kind of make me stronger, kind of give me more powers when I face all the challenges in life.
And what did you become aware of? That's the second question, of course.
I'm embracing right now the identity of being my mom and also being a professional woman. And in the past, I was being successful, doing media works, etc. Just because that's what I like, I wanted to do. And now I wanted to become a professional woman, also set a good example for my son. So it's a combination of my identity. That is my awareness, that whenever I make a decision, I think of both of my identity. I wanted to look back to my mom and how she would make a balance between a mom and a daughter. And so that's my awareness at this moment.